Settlers coming to the New World from Europe didn't know if they'd survive the voyage, and once they arrived, many died from disease and hunger. It took blood, sweat, and tears to build a new colony out of the wilderness, but it also took money. Money is something the early colonists didn't really have. They were in debt from the very beginning. Any excess they were able to produce was sold back to England to buy needed supplies. Since English merchants only accepted gold and silver as payment, the colonists didn't have any of this hard currency, also known as specie, saved up for a long time. They used every shilling to buy what they needed to survive. By royal decree, most colonies were not allowed to mint new coins, even if they did find gold or silver ore in the hills. And paper money didn't exist yet. Jamestown was founded in 1607, 169 years before the signing of the Declaration of Independence. How did they make it that long with so little money? They got creative. These hardy pioneers did what people always do when money is scarce. They made it up. For example, a number of commodities were used as money, in addition to gold and silver. People in Massachusetts used wampum, which are beads made from a type of seashell. They went at a rate of 6 white shells to the penny, with the black shells being worth twice as much. They were valuable because they were accepted by the people of the Iroquois Confederacy in exchange for beaver pelts, which could be sold for real money. This deal didn't last long, though. Wampum was really more of a social or ceremonial currency to the Iroquois, so it was meaningful to them, but not in huge quantities. Once the Iroquois stopped wanting to trade beaver pelts for them, the shells just became shells again, and colonists stopped using them as money. Throughout the colonies, farmers would regularly barter for things they couldn't grow, offering produce from their farms in trade. This may have been what led certain commodities like rice, corn, and even whiskey to occasionally being used as money in some places. But one commodity truly stands out from the others, especially in Virginia, and that's tobacco. Tobacco was essential to Virginian life in this period. It was their primary cash crop that they sold back to England, and you could smoke it, of course, but you could also pay your taxes with it. It started being used as money very early on at Jamestown, and by 1642, it was made legal tender in the entire colony of Virginia. That meant people couldn't refuse to be paid in it. You want gold coin? Tough luck, here's some tobacco. Tobacco was used as money in Virginia until it was outlawed by the Constitution in 1788. That's almost 2 centuries. But not every colony had a favorable climate for growing tobacco. So what did they use as money? Even if shocking to the sensibilities of respectable Englishmen everywhere, they actually used paper. Paper was never used before by any government in the Christian world, at least. It was first used as money by the Tang dynasty of China around the year 800. But in the West? Never. I know we just got done talking about tobacco, but that's a valuable commodity that can be traded for gold or silver. It really wasn't that far-fetched. Even wampum could eventually be converted to gold after first buying beaver pelts. But paper? That's worthless. This perversion of hard money principles started innocently enough with a nice, wholesome war. The Massachusetts irregulars wanted to attack Quebec in 1689 to do their part in a conflict known as King William's War. The only problem was colony leaders couldn't pay their soldiers. But Sir William Phips, who later became governor, knew there was a French fort near the border that definitely had a bunch of money in it. Lots and lots of money. So when he told his men that they'd get paid with the spoils of war, they let out a cheer, grabbed their muskets, and went. Once they got there, the fighting was,
surrender!
It didn't go so great.
I have no reply to make other than from the mouths of my cannon.
This was a problem. The soldiers still hadn't been paid yet. What are you going to do? No one really wanted to raise taxes, so in 1690 they wound up giving the soldiers IOUs. They would be paid just as soon as we can find the gold. I'm sure it's around here somewhere. There wasn't any, everyone knew that. Months went by and there still wasn't any. But by that point, everyone kind of accepted the paper IOUs. I mean, they'd probably be turned into gold eventually. They started being traded around, and then someone had the bright idea to let people pay their taxes with them. At that point, the first true paper money in the Western world was born. After being paid in taxes, those first IOUs were burned. I mean, people kind of accepted them, but it was still a little embarrassing. No self-respecting government would print money it knew it would have trouble redeeming in gold. That's fraud. Except, Massachusetts printed even more the next year. Some of these new bills circulated in the economy for up to 20 years after. That's how badly colonial America needed money. And things were pretty dire in Canada too. Remember those French soldiers in the fort with all that loot? Despite what Sir William Phipps may have thought, they didn't have any money there either. Those soldiers were actually being paid in playing cards at that time. That's right, after never having been done before in the West, people in two different nations started doing it at almost the exact same time, independently. No matter what they used as money, prices in the English colonies were still generally listed in the English units of pounds, shilling, and pence. Now, these coins were only occasionally seen, but that didn't matter. The Spanish dollar was actually more common. That's because in the 15 and 1600s, the Spanish Empire mined and just straight up stole from indigenous people huge quantities of silver in South and Central America. In 1536, they set up a mint in Mexico City, formerly known as Tenochtitlan, and churned out silver dollars like crazy. A dollar was a lot of money at that time, so people would cut up the dollars into eighths or bits. That's why these coins were sometimes also called pieces of 8. Now, English colonists weren't supposed to trade with the Spanish. This was before free trade was a thing. They obtained the coins through a diversity of methods, sometimes legit, sometimes piracy. They remained in use for hundreds of years and were very popular. And due to that popularity, some colonial paper money was actually denominated in dollars as well. Anyway, the Spanish Empire had a ton of money. They thought they'd be rich. I mean, why wouldn't you think that? And they were for a while, but they just kept minting silver dollar after silver dollar. So they ended up with massive inflation. It's not what your money is made out of that matters, it's how much you create. And it's also about how the economy reacts to the new money. For example, if the economy is able to grow along with the money supply, you can even create a lot of money and not get any inflation. What really matters in determining the value of a dollar or any currency is what you can buy with it. When there's nothing to buy, your dollar isn't worth anything. But in a healthy economy, as it grows, there's more stuff to buy, meaning your dollar is worth more. Or we can even it out again by printing more dollars, which is what we always do today. With paper money, as opposed to gold and silver, there can even be an extra temptation to keep printing, even if the economy's not growing in response, because it's just so easy. Massachusetts fell into this trap. They took a break after their initial experiment in the 1690s, but by 1702 they were back at it. By 1714, they had printed 194,000 pounds worth of these notes, and they had depreciated to 70% of their face value. Later issues depreciated much more even, causing severe inflation by the 1740s. Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, and other colonies also used paper money because there weren't a lot of other options. They could pool their resources together and start a bank, I guess, but that was difficult for the early colonists. There were actually no banks at all in colonial America, at least not as we know them today. In 1741, things got even tougher when the British made chartering a new bank illegal in the colonies without special approval. Pennsylvania started using their paper currency in 1723, and young Benjamin Franklin was a big fan. When some legislators wanted to stop using it in 1729 out of fear of inflation, Franklin wrote a pamphlet in support of paper money.
A modest inquiry into the nature and necessity of a paper currency.
He managed to convince them to keep the experiment going. He was only 23 at the time. The legislature was so impressed with Franklin that they even gave him the contract for the printing, which he completed using his press at the Pennsylvania Gazette. He also printed paper money for Delaware and New Jersey as well.
The printer hopes the irregular publication of this paper will be excused by his town readers, on consideration of his being in Burlington with the press, laboring for the public good to make money more plentiful.
Philadelphia established a loan office so people could borrow money in Franklin's paper currency using land as collateral. As the mortgages were paid back, the currency would be retired and taken out of circulation. Franklin felt that the automatic stabilization of issuing money by loaning it out was key to maintaining its value. So most colonies used paper money, and it worked pretty well, especially when under Franklin's watchful eye. New York and New Jersey didn't see the same depreciation that Massachusetts did, and Pennsylvania used Franklin's paper money for decades with very little inflation at all. Meanwhile, back in Britain, Parliament and the King could not believe what they were seeing. To them, this was proof that the colonists had serious moral failings and could not be trusted to rule themselves. Parliament banned new paper money in New England in 1751, and by 1764, legal tender status was revoked in all 13 colonies with the Currency Act. But by that point, the colonists, and especially their governments, really liked the paper money, actually. Franklin was alarmed by the British Parliament's decision to ban paper money, and he went in person to the House of Commons to argue his case for paper. But he was ignored. This lit a spark of outrage that would eventually fan into flames of revolution. The very next year, in 1765, Parliament poured gasoline on that spark with the Stamp and Quartering Acts, and relations just got worse from there. Britain thought that America would never rise up against them. How would it be possible? The colonists had no money. And to be fair, the British knew better than anyone how important hard currency was in maintaining an army. Paying for the revolution was indeed a major challenge, as we'll see in the next episode. But Benjamin Franklin had an idea. We would issue our own continental paper currency, no longer denominated in pence, pounds, or shilling, but in dollars.